BYD's international expansion continues unabated, with models like the Dolphin Mini, the Atto 2 and the Sealion 8 all headed to markets such as Australia, the UK and Europe as well. And the next model rumoured to be heading to those markets is this one. This is inside China Auto, and this is the BYD Sealion 5. Yes, this is the BYD Sealion 5, a mid-size, fully electric crossover from BYD. It sits above the Atto 3 in their lineup and below the Sealion 6, or Seal-U, as you might know it in international markets. And you actually can get a hybrid car called the Sealion 5 in China, but it's a different design language, an older car. That one will not be going to international markets, but this one absolutely is intended to do so. For context, it's about the same size as a Volkswagen Tiguan, just slightly longer, but otherwise roughly the same proportions. It sits on BYD's E-Platform 3.0 Evo chassis, which is an 800-volt platform, which means that you get faster charging speeds than you would normally get on BYDs in current international markets. You also get a 12-in-1 integrated electric motor on the rear axle, which is more efficient than their previous ones. It also gets the updated, the kind of evolving design language of the Ocean series, which is much more softer. It's been debuted on the Sealion 6 and the Sealion 7, the new ones, the ones that you don't have yet. You can see here we get this kind of wrap-around daytime running light at the front there. It's like a big smile across the front of the car. Much softer design language overall. Get this kind of isolated gloss black plastic air inlets around the wheels there. You can get an active grille on the flagship version of this car, but we don't get that because this is the mid-range version. We also get a large bonnet under here, a 110-litre front, which I think is the biggest we've seen on a BYD so far. Very useful space. You can probably get a 20-inch suitcase in there or two large duffel bags, no problem at all. You'll notice that down here we get a millimeter wave radar. That's because this car gets God's Eye C, which is BYD's most basic autonomous driving system. It means that it doesn't get a LiDAR, but you do get the millimeter wave radar, a lot of ultrasonic sensors, more millimeter wave radars and cameras to give this car the ability to do autonomous driving on highways and urban expressways. But you can also remember your commute, so it can do some level of urban autonomous driving too. And it'll do valet parking, which I'm going to try and demonstrate later on. You also get, by the way, as part of that, turquoise lights here in the mirror that light up to tell you that you're in autonomous driving mode. Sadly, international versions of this car probably won't get God's Eye C. You'll probably get all the parking sensors and things like that, but you won't get God's Eye C, at least for a few more years yet. On our car, we've got 17-inch wheels. On the flagship version, you get 18-inch wheels. We get McPherson strut suspension up front and 5-link suspension at the rear, so pretty standard overall setup. You'll notice, by the way, that the inset of the wheels is really quite deep. They feel like they could be pushed out a little bit further to kind of bulk this car up a little bit. It does feel a little bit more narrow because the track is so narrow down there. But we also get this kind of plastic trim all around the side here, just to kind of boost the SUV credentials of this car a little bit. We get the chrome delete, so there's no chrome around here. It's gloss black plastic, and we get gloss black plastic on the roof rack as well. And we get these pop-out door handles on the side there. What we don't get is any kind of soundproof glass or even window tinting on the rear windows. So yeah, it's kind of softly styled around the front. At the rear, a little bit more upright and adjunct, a bit more kind of chopped off there. I do like it. It makes it look a bit more like a genuine hatchback. We get this sort of large panel across the rear here. Inside there, you get your daytime running light details, these kind of angry eye look that we got on the Seal 06 GT, as well as a horizontal daytime running light on there, and little water drop details in there to reinforce that this is part of the Ocean lineup. We also get a light up BYD logo in the middle. But other than that, fairly simple styling. We get fake air outlets down the side there, but a silver trim at the bottom. Twin blade rear spoiler at the top for extra aero or better aero, and a rear window wiper. On the flagship version, you get an electronic boot lid, manual, on the mid and low range versions. In here, 600 litres of space, which is quite a lot of storage space for a car of this size. And you get a split level floor on this, so you can raise that up and have a higher boot floor and keep some stuff under the boot floor there. There's another 100 litres or so at the back of the boot. If you fold down the rear seats, they go on 40/60, you get up to 1,460 litres of space. You also get a bit of space here on either side of the boot. 4 hooks for hanging shopping and stuff, 12V socket on there, and you can also do AC discharge from your charging port on this side of 3.3 kilowatts. So yeah, pretty practical car. Is it as nice inside? Let's find out. Inside the Sealion 5, it's a little bit more basic than we've been used to from some of the more expensive, more luxurious cars we've driven recently. But as you can see, it's also in black, so it's a little bit more miserable to look at overall. I think you can get a different interior color on the Sealion 6. But nevertheless, it is still pretty comfortable and nice to touch. So we get squidgy stuff on top of the dashboard and on the doors. We get a belt of fabric around the doors and the dash. Not often we get fabric in cars these days. And we get imitation leather on the seats and on the steering wheel and on the center console too. So it is lovely and soft to touch in all the places where you're going to be touching most of the time, but it's a lot more plastic down on the bottom sides. We also get this kind of main gloss black panel across the dashboard that houses our vents, as well as our driving information display here behind the steering wheel. That's about an 8-inch screen. You get quite a lot of features on there actually. You can cycle between them on the steering wheel, more than we get on a lot of Chinese cars, to be honest. And then in the middle, we get a 12.8-inch screen here running the D-Pilot 100 system, which is BYD's most basic system. That said, not a bad system at all. You can change here to have lovely kind of pictures as your background, or you can change it back to maps and have maps as the main background. You get easy access tabs across the front for the things that you're going to touch more often, and you get a customizable toolbar down here so you can change what things you want to touch more quickly. We also get access to our dual zone climate control, so you can change the temperature on the front page, and you can change the fan speed on there as well, which I like because we didn't get that on the Leapmotor C16. You can also put it into split screen mode as well, so you can have maps and something else side by side. You can even have WeChat in your BYD if you want to. So a good little screen. That runs pretty quick as well. Don't know what chip it's running, but it's certainly fast enough. Beneath that, we get a few physical switchgear buttons as well. So a roller wheel to change our driving mode, so Eco, Comfort, Sport and Snowfield. We also get parking assistance. You get an on-off button, which funnily enough you can turn on or off, so you don't need to use it. Some vent controls and your volume controls on there as well. Behind that, we get a 50-watt ventilated wireless charger. My phone still got pretty hot on there yesterday, to be honest with you, but maybe that's because I was using multiple screens at the same time. And you get another space for a phone there. Pair of cup holders. We get a magnetic tissue box here, so you can put some tissues in there, stick them through the hole, and you've got easy access to tissues in the car, which is good for families. And on the mid-range version and low version, we get a pocket here. You can get a fridge / heater unit, so it'll go from -6 to 6 degrees, or from 35 to 50. You get a little dial to control it here. That will hold, on the flagship version, about 500ml bottles. So a good little useful thing for your family to have a cooling fridge in the car. In fact, every BYD now comes with a fridge, except for the Seagull, which is the smallest one. Apart from that, we get fairly small door pockets, to be honest with you, but a large space in the center with USB-C and USB-A sockets. Pretty large glove box as well, much bigger than that on the C16 that we drove recently. And we get a pop-out hook on there as well to hang some extra stuff. The steering wheel comes with a lot of buttons on, a lot of switch gear in BYDs. They keep a lot of things manual, including your paddle on the back here. That's not for changing gears, that's for turning your ADAS system on. So paddle for your ADAS, and then more controls to control the ADAS and your multimedia functions at the same time. The seats are pretty large, really quite comfortable. They're only 6-way adjustable for the driver and 4-way for the passenger. So not the easiest way to get the optimal driving position, but it's not a bad driving position. It could just do with a bit of tilt angle on your base cushion, something like that, just to kind of enhance the comfort a little bit more. But you do get heating and ventilation as standard on these two front seats. So that's a nice thing, but no massage functions here. Again, more physical switchgear in the doors here for your windows and your mirrors. BYD keep those things out of the system, which I do like. As well as that, we also get an 8-speaker sound system, so 4 in the front, 4 in the back. Again, not the most exciting sound system, but it'll do the job. And then up here, we get a really large panoramic window that's available on the mid-range and flagship editions. Also comes with an electronic sun blind as well, which you can operate here just by your sunglasses holder. So overall, fairly comfortable, yet basic interior in the front. And yeah, probably expect the same in the back. As expected in the back, not really that much to write home about. It is pretty spacious, so I'll give it that. That seat is where I would sit, so plenty of footroom down there, loads of knee room. We are in a kind of an SUV style body, so the seat is quite high and very supportive under your thighs, loads of headroom as well. So you're not going to get uncomfortable in a long journey in the back, other than not having heating and ventilation and things for cold or hot temperatures. But apart from that, lots of storage. We get door pockets here, door pockets there, 3 pockets on the back of each of the front seats, and on the mid and flagship versions, we get an armrest with a pair of cup holders in the middle as well. Down here, we get 2 vents, so you can direct the airflow for the back seats, and you get USB-C and USB-A sockets. And that's about it, really. You can pop up your headrests, make those the right height to be totally comfortable. There's no backrest angle adjustment or anything like that. Down here, though, we do get a kind of a panel, a Velcro panel over our Isofix mounts. Once you've lifted that up, very easy to get to. The downside is you've got to move the flexible panel and then tuck it in on either side to make it look nice. But you know, it's better than it has been on many other cars, like the Leap Motor that we drove last time round. So yeah, it's comfortable but basic. Now, one of the good things about BYDs is that you can pretty much expect quite a well-sorted driving experience, to be honest with you. I mean, even the most basic one, which is the Seagull, it's not a sports car, but it's actually really quite fun to drive and enjoyable to push to the limit. This car is very much in the same vein. You can, of course, get sportier BYDs. This is not one of the sporty ones, so it does have a fair bit of body roll around corners, and it's a very squidgy ride. The overall ride quality itself, though, is very good. And the overall feel of the steering is pretty decent. You get a good amount of feedback, particularly if you put the steering into sport mode. There's only standard and sport mode. Sport mode does give you a decent amount of feedback from the wheel. Again, it's not a racing car, you're not expecting that, but it is enjoyable to drive on the whole, particularly because it's got a great turning circle, which I'll come on to in just a moment. But it's also a pretty sprightly car. It's fairly quick. You can get either a 140 kilowatt motor on the rear axle. It's 188 horsepower, 330 Newton meters of torque. That will do 0 to 100 in 7.6 seconds. So reasonably fast, actually, for a car of that power. You can also get a 160 kilowatt motor. That's 214 horsepower, again, 330 Newton meters of torque. That will do 0 to 100 in 7.2 seconds. So again, that's pretty good. I think we've got the 160 kilowatt motor today. So ours is fairly punchy, actually. I think it was punchier than the Leap Motor C16 that we drove recently, which is a much larger car. I'm going to come back onto a comparison about the C16 in a short while. Now, in terms of the batteries, there are 2 choices. You get either a roughly 50 kilowatt hour battery. It's an LFP blade battery, as you would expect from a BYD. That will get you 430 kilometers of range on the CLTC cycle, and that will charge from 30 to 80% in 18 minutes. The larger battery, which is just under 61 kilowatt hours, will get you 520 kilometers of range, again on the CLTC cycle, and will charge again 30 to 80% in 18 minutes. So the peak charging for the smaller battery is 140 kilowatts. It's 156 kilowatts for the larger one, which is quite a bit bigger than what you would normally get on a BYD of this size, which is generally about 80 to 100, depending on the size of the car that you've got. Now, I mentioned I wanted to talk about the turning circle of this car because it's really quite remarkable. It's just 4.65 meters, which is less even than the Neo Firefly that we drove. And we were really impressed with the Neo Firefly. Now, here, I'm on basically a single lane road. I'm going to push it up to the right-hand side of this lane and do a U-turn. Look at that. Basically, almost within 2 lanes. I mean, we drove into the bike lane a little bit over there. It's ridiculous. The car just spins on a dime. It's so easy to drive. And, you know, with the soft steering, it just means it's so much more maneuverable than almost anything out there. It really just absolutely spins. So it's brilliant. Very, very good. It's also good for the automatic parking, the valet parking, which I'll come on to in a moment. Now, there are 3 versions of this car. They're all called Smart Driving because they all come with God's IC, as I mentioned, outside the car. The base version is the 430 kilometer version. with the smaller battery and the smaller motor. That costs 117,800 RMB. It's about £13,000, maybe $15,000, which is pretty reasonable value, I would say, for a car that's got this much space in it, particularly if you're looking for an EV with this much space. The mid-range version, which is what we have, is 520 kilometers of range, and that one is 127,800 RMB. The flagship version, which is basically the same as this one, but with a few more goodies, that one is 137,800. Now, the one thing I would say, and this is where I'm going to bring a comparison back to the Leapmotor C16, is that the C16 is a significantly bigger car than this, even in 5-seater form. Loads of space. You get things like Napa leather and a screen, a really large boot, and obviously a longer range because it is an extended range EV. That one's just 168,800 RMB. And I think a lot of people would potentially make that comparison, because if you can stretch just that little bit further, you would probably go for the bigger car, to be honest with you. So that's kind of the position that a lot of car brands find themselves in. That's what they're kind of having to compare themselves to, particularly if they offer a fully electric car. But I do think this car would still be quite competitive up against something like I think about a Scenic E-Tech is probably about the same size in Europe, maybe even a Kia EV3. I'd like to see what they compare, or how they compare side by side. But I think that's kind of the area that you're looking at when the Sealion 5 goes to international markets. I want to mention as well, by the way, the energy efficiency is claimed to be 12.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, according to the sticker in the window, over the last 50 kilometers. And bear in mind, this has been sat in the sun for 2 hours, just using the aircon, going nowhere. So it was at 14.1 this morning, it's now at 14.2. So the average is about 13.9 if you take away the stop with the aircon. So it's pretty close to that amount. On the system, over the nearly 1,500 kilometers it's been driven, it's actually at 19.8, but this is a dealer car and they're generally driven like maniacs. So that's probably a bit exaggerated. I can certainly say the driving that I've been doing, which hasn't been highway driving, has been mostly urban with some high-speed urban driving. 14.2 to 14 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers is what I've been achieving. So fairly close, but not quite as accurate as maybe Xpeng are with their energy predictions. Now, as I mentioned, we do get a smart driving system. I haven't had the chance to drive it on the highway, but I can use it on ordinary roads by pulling my paddle there. I found it to be a little bit sensitive, so it gets quite spooked by other vehicles around. So one's just pulled away from the curb there and moved into the second lane, and we've now slowed right down to 30 before we start to pick up again. So I think it's not yet an ideal system. It's still a bit of a nervous system compared to some in China. I'm going to turn that back off again. I think still a bit of work to be done with the God's IC system, though I would like to try God's IB and see if that's significantly better. Now what I'm going to do, just to finish off this driving section, is take you to a car park and show you the car doing valet parking. That is where you can set the space that you want to park in on the system, get out the car, and the car will drive itself into the parking space. That seems like a fun way to finish, so let's go and do that. Alrighty, so we are in a car park now. I'm gonna head towards these spaces over here, and then at this point I'll press the parking button, click on valet parking, okay, and now the car is establishing which parking spaces are available. So I'm going to go for that one there, I think. Let's click on this one here, click OK. Now I have to get out the car, take my phone, take my key, and I'll simply press the lock button. And let's see what happens. Oh, I unlocked the car again. There you go, it worked. Cool. So that's it for our review of the BYD Sealion 5, another very decent entrant to a highly competitive small to medium sized fully electric crossover market. The big benefits I would say that the Sealion 5 brings to this segment: that great turning circle, which is brilliant for dense urban environments, pretty good fast charging for a car of this price point, big frunk and a big boot at the same time, so it's plenty spacious inside, and it's reasonably efficient and drives quite nicely at the same time. Not so great is that it's not super well equipped, unless you go for the flagship version, in which case you get a bit more kit. But other than that, it's not the most exciting car in the world, and it is going to have to go up against some very, very good competitors in international markets when it gets there. Thank you very much for watching. If you do, thank you for subscribing. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up so more people can see the great cars coming out of China. And as ever, we'll catch you next time.